All right, here we are after Thanksgiving break, week 14, day one. We're jumping in this week and continuing on with our study of tsunamis. And in order to do that, we're actually backing back up a little bit in order to try and consider not just what we know about tsunamis, but including what we know about them. We're trying to think of some ways that we can engineer some solutions to help and make them better, I guess you could say. That could mean reducing the damages of them. That could mean trying to find ways to detect them earlier. That could mean finding ways to send this information off to people who are in at-risk areas so that they can prepare themselves. So let's take a quick look at what we did in class. We're going to go ahead and open up week 14, day one learning. Hopefully this looks a little bit better. I welcome your feedback, but as before, we still have W14D1 or week 14, day one. I'm now separating out into learning, so the stuff we're doing during class time, and the exit ticket, which is what I am assessing and what I'm looking at specifically. So let's open up this week 14, day one learning. And when you get this open up, it's going to take you to a slideshow. Students have been invited to make a copy of this or just to do it by hand. I'm not looking at this one in particular, though I am happy to if you want to send it off to me. This is just practice to get your own thoughts going. You're going to go through and you are going to, there we go. You're going to try to brainstorm some ideas. And I'd encourage you to do that without really looking at this list that is made up from one of my class periods. But oftentimes after a natural disaster, scientists and other engineers try to develop technologies to reduce the impact of these disasters on people in the future. So I have 3 different categories, and you can categorize yours as you see fit. But as mentioned just a moment ago, the 3 areas are thinking about technology that can help to detect a tsunami, to identify that it's happening, to learn where it's coming from, whatever the case may be. 2, to create a technology that will get that information out to people. Because, of course, if we have data that a tsunami is coming, but it's not available for 3 weeks, that's not going to do any good. How do we get that information out to people so that they can act quickly? Because we know that tsunamis come in really fast, sometimes as short as 8 minutes, at least in the case of this 2011 tsunami. And every second counts, really. The third area is that of trying to help reduce the damage. And again, we saw this breakwater coming up and over, or we saw this cascading of water coming up and over what looked like a barrier that was already created. So what are some ways that we could create better barriers or different barriers, or maybe not even a barrier at all? Maybe you have another idea about how we could reduce the damage of a tsunami. Maybe something on the land. Maybe it's something to do with how we construct our buildings. Maybe it's something to do with and not just the formation of them, but where are they? Are they up on pylons? Are they down underneath the ground? Whatever your thoughts may be. Anyway, take a few moments and brainstorm at least 4 or 5 of your own ideas in total for different types of technology. And when you're done with that, of course, keep on listening here. And I'll take a look at some of these that your classmates have come up with. Again, if you haven't written yours down yet, take a few moments to write them down, either on paper or you can make a copy of this document as it shows here on the left-hand side. Just click File, down to Make a Copy, and you can make a copy of that entire presentation. So some ideas that were come up with in one of my classes. Students were talking about possibly having some machines to absorb the impact of it. In other classes, students talked about creating a barrier that would kind of ricochet and curve the water so that it sends it back towards where it was coming from. Other students have talked about walls that will rise up out of the ground when a tsunami is approaching. Moving backwards, students came up with ideas that well, Mr. Riley, we know that the water will kind of rush away from the beach when a tsunami is about to happen. So maybe we could have like a security camera or some sensor that would observe that and send out an immediate warning saying, hey, the tsunami's coming, you better get out of here, you better move. Other people talked about having sirens that would go off, either across the city, or somebody even brought up something that would be sent directly to your phone, since so many adults and even kids have phones now, maybe something like an Amber Alert system that we have here in the United States that would just send out automatically to all these phones saying potential tsunami, be advised, get to high land, whatever the case may be. There were a few different ideas for detecting that tsunami, and of course this is going to be essential if we're going to do one of the other two things, right? Or at least if we're going to do the second element. If you don't know tsunami's coming, you can't warn people about it. So one idea that a classmate had described was having some sensor out there on the ocean floor, or maybe it would even sit there and kind of float or wobble back and forth, and you'd be able to detect the typical wave patterns. But if you see a more forceful wave, or students talked about detecting the pressure of the water, that this would act as a detection device that would then send a signal out. Other cool ideas students came up with. Let's see, what else did we have? By the way, go ahead and look at this. Obviously, if you're making a copy of this, you're already looking at the ideas that your classmates came up with. If you're after the fact stuff, look at the ideas that your classmates came up with and see what sort of awesome ideas they came up with. But yeah, other class periods have talked about a satellite-based system where you can actually watch the waves inside the ocean, or the waves on top of the ocean based on the way that light is reflecting off of it. Great stuff. The next step is to take it a little bit further. You can choose to either write or you can draw. You'll see I have a really basic idea drawn of that box on a stick from the previous page about detecting the waves. You can write if you prefer writing. You can draw if you prefer drawing. Again, I have a brief explanation of this here. All you would do is go insert, line, and you could either scribble, which is what I did before, or you could insert shapes if you want to. That's your preference. But insert some drawing or some writing to explain this idea. Take it a little bit further, flesh it out. An idea on a page as just a sentence is great, but if we can expand upon this, that's going to help us to realize just how viable it is. At the end of class, we ended up coming back around and just kind of looking through all of the ideas that classmates had come up with. And again, take a look at this list as your classmates have come up with it. And whenever you are ready, I want you to pick one that you are most in love with, one idea that you think is the best, that's going to have the most impact for helping out humans and people affected. So you're going to go back to your exit ticket, and you are going to fill that out. And when you open this up, again, you'll see which one did you like the best, and just to kind of tell me a little bit more about that. How do you think this is going to help people? Why do you think this is the best? And then which category did that wind up fitting into? Is it about detecting tsunamis? Is it about giving warning? Is it about reducing damage? Or maybe some other category that you think of that I didn't actually list out. One other thought, by the way, always make sure to submit that on Google Forms. One other thought. So this generation of ideas, this brainstorming, this is actually something that I posted as an extension several weeks ago, and only a couple of kids did it. And it just seemed so important that it was something that I wanted to cycle back around to. But this is our optional task 3 this week, optional task 3, to think like an engineer. Whoopsies. If you feel like you are enjoying coming up with some of these ideas, go and check this out. Look at some of the other ideas your classmates have come up with when they're giving that more extreme detail. Again, this is just reposted from several weeks ago with a new note that if you've already completed this may feel a little bit different, that some of the instructions may not really be relevant since, again, this was posted 3 weeks ago. But when you do open it up, if you choose to, you know what, take a look through. There's only 1 or 2 other ones, but your ideas added to theirs, added to others. You can start pursuing this engineering on your own accord, even though it's something that we don't have absolute time for in class. So feel free to take a look and make that happen, okay? All right, if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. I'm available by email. You can reach out to me and drop in the office hours. Always happy to assist you in any way I can, and I really appreciate you always giving it your best to be a growing citizen, to be a growing scientist, always expanding. Take care.